Well, I was born in Cottonwood, Idaho on October 26, 1946. My parents are Stan and Bertha Kopczynski. I'm the oldest in the family. There were 10 children, and we're each like maybe 18 months to 2 years apart. My sister Marilyn was born in 1948, Carol, 1950, Ellen, 1951, Connie, 1952, Joan, 1954, Dawn, 1956, Karen, 1958, Larry, 1960. And Mom thought, okay, that's a nice family, that's probably the end. And then she got pregnant again. And my youngest sister, Maureen, was born in 1967. Mom and Dad met each other actually in Idaho. They had the same aunt, who was Susie Haney. So my mom and her mother came to Idaho to visit her Aunt Susie, who was also my dad's aunt. And so they spent some time together just in that summer and started writing letters to each other. And the next time they saw each other was when they got married in October of 1945. So they courted each other through the mail. And actually, I think my dad sent my mother an engagement ring through the mail. If you can believe that. My mom was born in Green Creek, Illinois. She was the youngest of 7 children, and her dad died when she was just a year old. So my grandmother did everything possible to save the farm. You know, that was kind of the beginning of the Depression. And my mom always told us kids that there wasn't much time for fun in her family. She learned how to work. And my mom was such a hard worker. And she taught all of us how to work too. In the summer of 1958, my mother had a sore throat, and she was pretty sick for a long time, and it just would not go away. I don't remember her being sick. I think she took care of all of us, and you know, back in those days, people didn't go to the doctor so much. In November, then she was kind of in bed for a few days, and my Aunt Mary Reed came up to the house and was just really appalled at how bad my mom seemed to her. So they called the doctor, and pretty soon an ambulance came, and my mom was taken to the hospital. And it really, really frightened me. She was actually in the hospital for a month, maybe 6 weeks. Yeah. And there were, how many of us at the time? 10 or 8 kids? 8 children. She left because she was so sick. She had rheumatic fever when she was a child or a teenager, and it kind of came back. So her heart was affected in a big way. And all of my aunts and neighbors and other people in town rallied around our family and brought meals. And my dad hired this woman called Mrs. Nelson, and she came every day and helped take care of us. And the other thing, she came home right before Christmas, and we had Christmas. I don't know how we had Christmas. It was all like clothes for our dolls, and cookies were made, and she didn't do any of that. It was all done by the people in Cottonwood. For years after that, she insisted on taking a nap every day. The doctor told her she needed to rest. Well, she came home from the hospital and stayed in bed for a long time just to get up, you know, occasionally. But every day after that, she took a nap and told us kids, you need to do the same thing. You need to, this house needs to be quiet for an hour. My dad was 35 when he got married. He did all kinds of things. I think during the Depression, he worked for farmers. He earned like $1 a day and lived with his parents, and any money that he earned during those years went to help, you know, the family. At one time, he thought he had a vocation to become a priest, and he and his brother Ray actually went to a seminary on the East Coast, but they didn't stay there very long. After that, he decided he would go to Coyne Electrical School in Chicago, and he became an electrician. He and his brother Jake and brother-in-law Les Reed owned the city electric. They sold appliances, they sold washing machines. He did a lot of wiring back in the day, you know, when rural electrification was coming to the Camas Prairie. And he fixed things for people all the time. My mom would complain, like he'd get a phone call at 7 o'clock at night. Well, you know, Mrs. Schmidt's washing machine doesn't work. So he'd leave home and go and fix her washing machine. And we had things at our house that never got fixed because he was too tired. But he was a worker too. My dad was sweet. My mom was kind of stern. She was stoic, and my dad was just really easygoing, pretty mild-mannered, and our family said the rosary together every night. For many years, he would insist that we kneel down and say the rosary. And it was fine until I was in high school and the phone would ring and he would not let us stop the rosary to answer the phone. Didn't matter if, you know, our boyfriends were calling, our girlfriends or what. And that was back in the day before answering machines. You didn't have any caller ID. You had no idea who had called you during that time, but we said a lot of rosaries. We got in the car to travel anywhere, the rosaries came out. We didn't have a car until 1956, and my mother was from Illinois, and she'd never been back to visit her family. And they may have sent her a little money so that we could buy this car. Dad and Mom piled 6 of us kids in that car and drove all the way to Illinois. We were gone on this big trip for 6 weeks. That was so much fun too. When we were back there with all of our Haney cousins and all the Illinois cousins, we got to know all of our aunts and uncles. And well, in our house there weren't very many bedrooms, so we each slept with somebody. Connie, I think, slept with me most of my growing up years. And so I just kind of remember being in bed giggling and, you know, telling stories to each other. We had parades together, and we played house. We had an old, like a chicken coop building on our property that we would go in there and set up cardboard boxes and made it look like it was a table. And of course we all had baby dolls, and I just love my siblings. Yes, we are so blessed, and I'll say it again. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for being open to the gift of 10 children. We're reaping the benefits. Whenever there's an occasion, most of us will make it a priority to be together. I admire every one of my siblings for very different reasons, but they all inspire me in so many ways. Well, my sister Carol died in 2001. She was just 50 years old. She had stomach cancer. That was a big loss for us. Carol was born with my mom and dad always called it glaucoma. One of her eyes was really enlarged as a baby. She had a lot of surgeries before she was even 2 years old. So she had a facial deformity, and people stared at her. You know, it was really, she had a hard life. Like Carol died 2001. Dad died in 2003, and our mom died in 2005. My dad was really pretty darn healthy, but he got dementia and got really confused about things, you know, and got to the point where he really couldn't carry on a conversation anymore. It was pretty sad. You know, I think he always knew who we were, but he couldn't call us by name or say, you know, well, how are things in Lewiston, you know, stuff like that. But my mom had to kind of direct his life and, you know, take him outside for walks and watch over him, because he would have a tendency to kind of wander away. After he died, and she would cry, I would do anything to have him back. It was hard, but you know, she missed him. She really missed him, and she died in a traffic accident. Otherwise, she may still be alive. I don't know, although she'd be 98. But I mean, she was really healthy too.
really, really in good shape.
My friend Carla Reiner, she's from that big Reiner family, and she worked at the store. She knew everybody. She knew all the young boys around from Green Creek and Grangeville and Ferdinand. And she and I were together just sitting in front of our house, and here comes a whole carload full of boys from Green Creek. And they stopped and talked to her. And then, of course, I was there. And my future husband, Leroy Wessels, was in the car too. So that's how we met each other. So we dated all through high school and got married in 1966. My mom and I were pregnant at the same time. My sister Maureen is 6 weeks older than my son, Dwayne. So that was kind of interesting, and I love to tell the story. Dwayne was born when I was 20. I mean, I did a lot of babysitting, but I didn't know anything about being a mother. Have 2 wonderful children. Dwayne was born in 1967, and Karen was born in 1970. Just have 2 kids. We were each from families of 10, but we said to her, oh, we know how to figure this out. We don't need to have a big family. And now I would give anything to have more children. I think God has a sense of humor. We started out in Spokane, then we moved to Lake Oswego, then we moved to Santa Rosa, and then we moved to Clarkston. When we moved to Clarkston, Karen was 7 and Dwayne was 10. So they went to school at, I think it's Highland Elementary School in Clarkston. And then they both graduated from Clarkston High School too. Well, I believe that Roy and I had a happy marriage for many, many years. We did a lot of things together with other people, with our children. I think probably his desire to kind of keep doing different things maybe sent us off in different directions. I was probably ready for a little bit more security at the time, and he was just kind of searching for something different to do. We went to a counselor, and I'll never forget this. This counselor said, the 2 of you really cherish each other, which I think we always did. It was just that we so many things had happened that it was just too hard for us to be married to each other. In the end, I became a different person, I think. I learned how to be by myself and learned how to be independent, and again made all kinds of friends and did things that I probably would not have done had I still been married to Roy. Unfortunately, in 2014, he got cancer and passed away. Really a hard time for my kids and for me too. I felt like I'd really lost, because we stayed pretty much close in contact to each other. If he would come to Clarkston to see the kids, I would be invited to come and join them, and I just really appreciated that. Karen was 21 and Dwayne was 24. And they weren't young. We didn't have to worry about any kind of a parenting agreement or anything like that. But, it's still hard. I think every child wants their parents to be together. And, my Catholic faith has been a really important part of my life. Our life really revolved a lot around going to church and going to Mass and being a part of all of that. And those were good years in Cottonwood. They laid a great foundation for all of us. My faith has changed over the years. I think when I was in a master's program at Gonzaga University called Organizational Leadership, and then from there I went to a certificate program for the church, that I learned how to be a little bit more of a critical Catholic. Before I just kind of accepted everything as the church says this and that. And now I've learned just what works better for me is to see the goodness in all religions and to know that God loves all people. He loves us all the same. It doesn't matter. You know, when we get to heaven, he's going to say, oh, you're Jewish. No. Okay, Catholics, all you Catholics, come over here. You know, I don't believe that. I just believe that he is going to say, well, when did you feed the hungry? When did you go visit the prisoners? You know, those kinds of things, more how we've treated each other. I think it was 1985. I applied for a bookkeeping job at Tri-State Convalescent Center in Clarkston. It was a nursing home. And oh my God, just to go into that place scared the holy heck out of me. I told you before, you know, old people, I had some fear they were going to die, you know, wouldn't know what to do. But I was hired to be their bookkeeper. And it took me a long time to get comfortable with the residents and the older people there. But oh my gosh, they are such treasures, such fonts of wisdom. So my career from that point on was working in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. In 1991, I moved to Boise and was in an administrator in training program. And I became a licensed administrator in 1992. And I worked in several different nursing homes. In 1999, I switched over to assisted living, and I came to Lewiston to work at Juniper Meadows Assisted Living Community. And I was there for 13 years. It was such a good job for me. I think I could still be there. Well, I wouldn't want to now during this pandemic because, you know, families can't come to visit. I retired in 2013. I flunked retirement the first time. I retired first in 2011. And the person that they hired to replace me didn't last there more than about 6 months. So would you please come back and just work a little bit until we find a new person? That was a year and a half later. When my grandchildren were born, honestly, I cannot think of anything better than having grandkids. I mean, my own children, that was wonderful, but, you know, I was too busy raising them and disciplining them and worrying about a lot of things. But with the grandkids, it's just nothing but pure delight to be with them, just to enjoy every little thing that they do, and just to love them. You know, you don't have to tell them what to do, you just have to love them. But you know what? I have enjoyed every age that they've been. When they were in high school, with their games or whatever they were doing, that was just fun. And now it's fun too. They're all developing into these wonderful adult people that are respectful and like each other, and they're just wonderful. So that's all good too. There's lots of signs now that say be kind. And I think that is really worth saying again. Be kind, treat others respectfully. God notices when we are kind to each other and when we love each other. My kids and grandkids, I think they're pretty good about texting each other. You know, they kind of know, and even on, you know, you can go to an app and see where their phones are, you know where they are. But the other thing I want to say is, don't forget to call once in a while so you can hear each other's voices. My kids are busy and I just feel like, oh, if I call them, they're doing this, or, you know, they're busy, but I want to hear your voice, you know. I'd love to hear your voice and just to hear what you're doing, even if it's just a short phone call. So grandkids, never forget that you should call home.